This is Jake Sully, a handicapped war veteran living in the States. He doesn't do much with his time other than watch TV and get into bar fights, and eventually looks back at his life and decisions, not knowing all that is about to change. Two officials approach Jake and tell him his brother Tom has been murdered. He is saddened, but they offer him Tom's contract with millions of dollars. He does not hesitate and signs the contract immediately. The job was to inhabit and go to a newfound planet named Pandora. This planet supports life like Earth, and 6 years later, he wakes up in a space shuttle headed for the planet. Jake and the rest of the crew board a shuttle headed to a base inside Pandora. Everyone is told to wear full-face respirators, as the planet's air is toxic to humans and 20 seconds of breathing the air will kill them within 4 minutes. After landing, Jake attends a military briefing hosted by Colonel Miles Quaritch. He informs them that the native people, the Na'vi, and if they want to survive they must obey the laws here. He visits a research laboratory and meets the biologist, Norm Spellman. He then explains to him if a human connects to the genetically engineered Na'vi, they can inhibit the body and blend in with the Navis. As Jake and Norm then walk into the science department, the lead scientist named Grace Augustine wakes up from a specifically made pod that connects her to her own avatar. She is angry at Jake for some reason and storms off. She goes right to the base commander and a representative of a company called RDA. His name is Parker Selfridge, and his company is in charge of all military and other personnel stationed at the colony. She complains that she doesn't need a handicap and wants a replacement. He tells her that he is the only genetic match that can inhibit his brother's avatar. He then picks up a rock and shows her and tells her that it sells for $20 million per kilo, and the only reason she is being funded and the only thing she should be interested about. She keeps quiet and ends up putting Jake in his pod and turning it on. His mind then travels through and goes into the avatar body as we see it wake up. He immediately starts moving his feet and stands up. He cannot believe it as he hasn't walked in years. He ignores everyone and runs outside. He starts sprinting and enjoys his time. When his avatar sleeps, his human body wakes up and he gets out of his pod. Next he strikes a conversation with the Colonel. The Colonel tells him the true purpose of Jake coming to this planet. That Pandora has a rock named unobtainium that is worth billions. He tells him that the largest amount of unobtainium is housed underneath a tree that the Na'vi people live in, and that Jake and his team has 3 months to gain their trust and peacefully move them, or else a military strike will occur and kill everyone living inside the tree. The next day Jake connects with his avatar and flies over Pandora. He is with Grace and Norm and goes to collect flora samples. Jake gets distracted by some plants that disappear. He looks up and sees a rhino-like creature. Unfortunately, a black beast comes out of nowhere and chases Jake. He runs and is forced to jump into a waterfall to save himself. He goes into survival mode and gets prepared for anything. A Na'vi saw him and just watches him until night time, where mysterious floating entities fly towards him, which intrigues her. She offers to take him to Omatakayan and introduces herself as Neytiri. But as they got close, the locals threatened them and Neytiri told them to back down. Her fiancé then approaches. His name is Su Te and is next in line to the throne. He wants the human killed, but Neytiri said they must go to the king and queen, who luckily are her parents. She ends up vouching for him even though she doesn't know him. Her mother, the queen, circles Jake and asks what he wants. He says he wants to learn about how to be one of them. She looks at Neytiri and says she must teach him and guide him. After a long day he goes to a cocoon-like bed and goes to sleep, only to be woken in his human body. He goes to the mess hall and he starts bragging about how he was entered into their tribe. Even Grace was in shock and couldn't believe it. The Colonel also congratulated him on moving forward with the mission and reminds him to not forget the objective. The following day Jake was somehow convinced to capture and tame a scout. But we'll just call it a baby dragon instead. He grabs a rope, throws it on its neck and jumps on it. Through an arm wrestle he just manages to grab its antenna and merge it with his neural connection. It flies off the cliff and Jake manages to hold and control it. Neytiri then joins him for a cruise. But a shadow is seen, and when they look up, a steroid-abused scout flies towards them. They maneuver their way into the tree line and escape the beast as we look at its magnificence when it flies away. Neytiri then tells Jake that only a few of the past kings have ever tamed a beast like that. After many successful weeks and learning the proper way to be a Na'vi, they accept him as one of their own and properly make him a member of the clan. After the ceremony, Neytiri takes him to a place of prayer to which they utilize their nerve endings. The next day Neytiri awakens to the sound of falling trees and sees a number of bulldozers in the vicinity destroying everything. Jake then jumps in front of the bulldozer and goes up to its camera and starts pounding it with a rock. Back at home base the Colonel sees this and knows Jake has betrayed him. Su Te tries to kill Jake after knowing that he betrayed him and the clan. The Queen is furious as well. Jake says he will fix it when suddenly his avatar then drops. His human self wakes up and the Colonel gives him a mad punch, knocking him out. The Na'vi end up burning the bulldozers and decide the attack as an act of war. Jake, after much convincing, approaches Parker and tells him to give him one more chance to get the Na'vi to leave their home tree peacefully. Parker threatens him and tells him he has 1 hour or else. Once he is back among the Na'vis, he tells them that they are under invasion from the humans, and that he is one of them and knew this would happen. Neytiri hears this and pushes Jake away for betraying her trust. The other Na'vis are equally devastated, and so, they abduct the human avatars as hostages. After this, the humans, who have arrived in a large number of flying ships, are shot at by bow and arrow from the Na'vis. The humans then immediately shoot smoke bombs which lands inside the tree. This forces the Na'vis to leave. Upon seeing this, they begin shooting their explosives at the tree, killing many Na'vis along the way. In an extraordinary scene, we see the Colonel drink his cup of joe as the tree begins to topple, and eventually falls to the ground. Immediately Jake and his comrades are arrested and placed into a cell together. Neytiri then looks back at the destruction and devastation the humans have caused for the mere sake of greed. Back at home base, the three of them are secretly rescued by their team pilot named Trudy. But as they board the ship, the Colonel sees them and starts firing rounds on them, but they manage to escape. Jake then immediately jumps back into his avatar and awakens in a literal pile of ash. He looks around at the devastation and then sees his baby dragon. He decides that to regain the trust of the Na'vis there is only one way, and that seems to be jumping on the back of the most dangerous creature on the planet. Back at the Tree of Souls, the Na'vi are performing a ritual for the dead and their new commander in charge. Suddenly the dragon-sized scout comes down when the Na'vi look in shock and surprise. Jake begins walking through the Na'vis and they all touch him, recognizing his new power. Then, Jake asks the new King Su-Te for assistance in battling the human army, and to unite the other clans and fight as one. He accepts, and together with Neytiri they go to other clans which end up agreeing to help fight in order to protect their planet. The humans find out about the Na'vi's plan and so go to end them once and for all. With hundreds of ships they fly towards the Tree of Souls. But the Na'vis then coordinate both a ground and air attack together. The scouts then start attacking the ships as Jake also throws a ship onto a mountain. The ground forces then charge at the humans as they open fire and within minutes start retreating. Two ships come and start obliterating the ground Na'vis. Even Neytiri's scout was shot down and the ships continue firing, which greatly injures Su-Te. Neytiri then observes the devastation and starts panicking. The ground forces start making ground when suddenly their radars showed hundreds of inbound creatures. They look up and rhino-like creatures emerge out of nowhere and start ramming into the tanks. Their armor is too thick and the bullets are not penetrating. Simultaneously the sky looks like a hornet's nest when hundreds of scorns appear, and turn the tide of the battle. Even the panther-like creatures join the battle to save the planet. Jake then throws a grenade onto the Colonel's ship and blows it up. But the Colonel acts quick and runs into an armored suit. He jumps off and lands on the ground safely. Jake then jumps out and sees the Colonel. But he pulls out a massive knife and they start fighting. They go toe-to-toe and Jake is winning, and so, the Colonel plays dirty and runs to the pod where Jake's body is and breaks the window. Jake's body then struggles to breathe and the Colonel lifts his avatar body up. He goes to kill him but Neytiri pulls out her bow and does a marksman shot, killing the Colonel. She then runs to the pod and puts a mask on Jake's face and smiles, knowing that they won. They start helping the casualties and see that Su-Te is bleeding out on the ground. He is about to die and he tells Jake that he is a true warrior and a true brother. He then instructs him and the rest of the clan that Jake is the new leader and to make sure he takes care of his people and Neytiri. In the last few scenes of the movie we see that the Na'vis are victorious as they send the humans back to their ship and back home. That night, the Na'vis perform a ritual on Jake and his avatar underneath the Tree of Souls. As they finish the ritual, we get a close-up of Jake's avatar that opens its eyes. What we learned from this film is that no matter where you started, no matter what limits you have put on yourself, there is always a way to stand up to greed and violence. That there is more important things than just money and that caring for others at the cost of your pride is sometimes worth it. Thank you for staying until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give me a like, and if not, make sure to hit the dislike button twice. Until next time.